My beloved child, I am not telling you to stop asking me to change your circumstances, for I am your Father, and I hear both the words you speak through tears and the sighs you do not have enough strength to form into sentences. I do not take lightly the burdens pressing upon your shoulders, nor do I stand far away watching you struggle alone among tangled paths. When you ask me to open a door, I hear. When you ask me to remove what causes you pain, I hear. When you ask for a brighter path, a clearer answer, someone who understands you more deeply, a gentler season, I hear it all with mercy. But today, I want to lead you into a deeper dimension of asking. Do not only ask me when the circumstance will change, ask me what is being revealed within you while that circumstance has not yet changed. Do not only ask me to move the stone from the road, let me show you why that stone makes you tremble so much, why it touches an old fear, why it pulls you back into reactions you thought you had already overcome. There are prayers that only look outward, and I still receive them with love. But there are prayers that begin to look inward, where I am doing a deeper work. When you say, "Please take this away," I may answer you gently, "What part of you is this touching?" When you say, "Please open a way for me," I may place my hand upon your heart and ask, "Where are you standing on that path? Are you standing in fear? In self-defense? In anger? In comparison? Or in trust?" I do not ask in order to shame you, but to lead you out of a way of praying that only longs to escape pressure, and into the prayer of one who is becoming mature. A little child cries out to the Father because they hurt, and I have compassion. But a mature child does not only ask for the pain to end, they also want to know what I am teaching, what I am healing, what I am rebuilding in the very place of pain. That is not weakness. It is growth in the light. Many times you have thought that the miracle must first come from the outside, a door opening, another person's heart changing, good news appearing, the situation turning around, the burden being lifted from your shoulders in a single moment. I can do those things, and there are times when I do. But not every miracle begins with the changing of the scenery around you. Some miracles begin in the way you stand. Some miracles sprout when you remain in the same circumstance, yet no longer bow your head like one ruled by it. Some miracles appear when old words no longer break you open as they once did, when delay no longer drags you into despair, when a closed door no longer makes you question your worth. When you learn to respond with peace instead of reacting with panic, the circumstance may still be there, but its throne within your heart begins to be brought down. It is no longer the sun around which all your thoughts revolve. I return to the center, and from there, everything else begins to become smaller in its proper measure. When your inner posture changes, you will realize that what once made you feel suffocated no longer has the right to determine your breath. You can still wait without falling apart. You can still not know everything without losing your peace. You can still face what is difficult without becoming its slave. That is why there are some requests I have not rushed to answer in the way you hoped. It is not because I am slow to understand your pain, nor because I want to prolong your weariness. I am waiting for you to change your inner standing place. If I open the door while you are still standing in fear, you may walk through that door, still carrying the old chains. If I remove the burden while you still believe you are safe only when you control everything, you will find another burden to embrace. If I change someone else before you let me heal what has been triggered within you, you may continue to live as one governed by an old wound. I do not merely want you to feel lighter for a moment. I want you to be deeply free. Remember the story of the people of Israel standing before the Red Sea. Behind them was the sound of the pursuers' chariots. Before them was the vast expanse of water, and on both sides was emptiness that made them feel there was no way left. If they had looked only at the circumstance, Everything would have said they were trapped. But I did not only open the sea so they could escape an army, I also taught them a new posture before fear. They had to stand still long enough to see that deliverance did not come from the speed of their running. They had to step onto the path just opened through the waters, where impossibility had stood. And as they passed through, not only did their position change, the way they knew me also changed. Do you see? I can change the scene in a moment. But I also want to change the way you stand before that scene. If your heart only learns to run, you will always search for the next escape. But when you learn to stand in me, even a great sea is no longer the final word. In the same way, my beloved, do not consider your slowing down to be proof that you have failed. There are times when you stand at a crossroads and cannot step forward immediately. There are times when you need more time to recognize what you fear, what you desire, and where you are confusing my voice with the voice of pressure. There are days when you only have enough strength to breathe, enough strength to sit still, enough strength not to decide too quickly. The world is often quick to judge those who move slowly. It says that the hesitant will be left behind, the unready will lose their portion, and those who cannot keep up will no longer have a place. You have listened to those laws for so long that sometimes you think I act in the same way. You fear that if you cannot step forward yet, I will move ahead and leave you in the dark. You fear that if you need more time, I will grow weary of you. You fear that if you are not brave enough yet, the light will be given to someone else while you must find your way alone. I want you to hear this clearly. I do not leave you behind when you walk slowly. I do not turn my back when you are still trembling. I do not put out the light simply because you are not yet strong enough to go immediately. I am a father, not a cold supervisor counting every mistake you make. I know the rhythm of your breathing, the weariness in your heart, the reasons your feet feel heavier than others imagine. I do not use the speed of the crowd to measure your maturity. I do not love you less on the days when you must stop in order to understand yourself. When you stand at the crossroads, I do not stand far away urging you on with a shout. I stand near, holding the light long enough for you to see the way, keeping peace close enough so you are not swallowed by confusion, holding my hand open so that when you are ready, you know there is a place for you to hold on to. You may not yet know what to choose, but you can still choose to stay near me. You may not yet see the whole road, but you can still take one small step in truth. Your circumstances may not have changed, but you can let me change the way you read those circumstances. Do not despise small steps. A sincere prayer, smaller than a cry, can still open a space of light. One time, when you do not react, according to the old fear, is already a victory. One time when you say, I want to understand what you are doing in me, not only what you will do around me, is a sign of maturity. I do not require you to mature by hardening yourself. I mature you by drawing you close, letting you see more deeply, helping you realize that what I do within you is more precious than the brief relief you once prayed for. Therefore, when you pray from now on, pray more widely. Speak to me about the circumstance, but also give me your reaction to that circumstance. Ask me to open the way, but also ask me to open your eyes. Ask me to change others, but also ask me to keep your heart from bitterness. Ask me to lift the burden, but also ask me to teach you not to identify your worth with how much you can carry. Ask me to answer, but also ask me to make you steady while you wait. This kind of prayer does not make you small. It makes you deeper. It moves you from the place of one who only wants to escape pain into the place of one who wants to be transformed in the Father's hands. Then a time will come when you look back and understand why some doors did not open immediately, why some paths were held back, why there were seasons when I let you stand longer than you wanted. You will see that I was never indifferent. I listened to every word, counted every tear, guarded every night when you thought you had been forgotten. But while you waited for me to change the scene, I was changing the foundation within you. While you asked me to bring you out, I was teaching you to stand. While you longed for an outward miracle, I was quietly building a miracle in the way you saw, the way you breathed, the way you trusted, the way you were no longer named by your circumstance. And when you finally move forward, you will not walk like someone who has merely escaped what was frightening, but like someone who met me in the very place that frightened them. You will know that I never left you behind because you moved slowly. I simply walked with you at the rhythm of love, until you had enough peace to step into what I had prepared. My beloved child, in the silences I place around you, something very deep is quietly taking place. You begin to hear again the old stories you once used to explain yourself. Before, you thought those stories were the truth because you had lived with them for so long. You told yourself that you always had to try harder, move faster, be stronger, or else you would be left behind. You told yourself that you had to carry everything, worry about everything, hold everything together, because if you let go, everything would fall apart. You told yourself that you were not allowed to rest, not allowed to be weak, not allowed to slow down, because once you stopped, people would forget you, life would pass you by, and opportunities would close before your face. Those words once seemed like ropes, keeping you from falling in a season of strong wind. But ropes that are not untied at the right time become chains. I do not blame you for once clinging to them. I know there were moments when you were simply trying to survive. But today, I call you into a wider truth. You no longer have to live by vows made in fear. There are words you once spoke to yourself that were not born from the light, but from a night when you were too tired, from a time when you were abandoned, from a season when you had to hold yourself up while no one understood. You stood before brokenness and silently promised, "From now on, I will not let myself need anyone anymore." You walked through disappointment and quietly decided, "From now on, I will do everything alone." You were overlooked and told yourself, "From now on, I must prove it to them." Those words sounded strong, but beneath them was a trembling child, afraid, trying to build a house in the storm with stones of self-defense. I saw you then, and I had compassion on you, but I do not want the words of fear to become the law that governs your life. What was spoken in panic has no right to rule you forever. What you vowed while wounded is not the covenant I placed upon you. So in the quiet, I do not only give you rest, I let you look again. I place you in a gentle light, where you can distinguish between what helped you survive one season and what is no longer allowed to lead you into the next. There are ways of living that once protected you, but now keep you far from peace. There are habits that once kept you from collapsing, but now keep you from being supported. There are layers of defense that once shielded you from pain, but now also shield you from the light I want to bring in. I do not come to snatch everything from your hands all at once, because I know you need to learn, trust, little by little. I come like a patient father sitting beside a child untying knot after knot, not scolding because you untie them slowly, not reproaching you because you once tied them too tightly, but gently reminding you that your hands were not created to hold fear forever. The change I am doing within you does not always begin with a great event. It often begins very small, so small that those outside do not notice. One day, you do not take on another burden simply because you fear losing your place in someone's eyes. One day, you do not rush to answer in order to prove you are right. One day, you do not run to fix someone else's emotions immediately, just because you cannot bear the discomfort between the two of you. One day, you let the phone remain still. Let silence exist. Let your heart not be pulled away by the need to control every reaction. Those moments may not be loud, but before me, they are holy victories. For each time you do not obey the old reflex, a new part of freedom is built within you. Each time you do not bow before the old fear, you learn to stand on the ground I have given you, no longer leaning against the wall built by your wounds. At first, you may feel empty, when you no longer rush to carry burdens. You may wonder whether you are still useful, when you no longer over-explain. You may wonder whether others will misunderstand you, when you no longer try to make everyone feel at ease. You may wonder whether they will leave, when you no longer wear the garment of the one who is always strong. You may feel as though you are standing before the wind with nothing to shield you. But my beloved, that emptiness is not loss. It is space I am creating, so truth can breathe. Not wearing armor does not mean you have become weaker. Sometimes it only means you have stepped out of a battle that no longer belongs to you. Not forcing yourself does not mean you have given up. Sometimes it only means you have stopped trying to be the redeemer of things. Only I have the right to save. Remember Moses, who once thought he had to use his own strength to resolve the pain of his people. Before I sent him at the appointed time, he acted out of haste, out of a zeal not yet fully guided, and then had to leave Egypt and live in the wilderness for many years. The world might look at that period as a step backward, but I saw it as the place where I removed from him the garment of self-reliance. In the wilderness, he no longer had a palace to lean on, no title to cover him, no noise of power to fill his heart. There, he learned to slow down. There, the hand once accustomed to seizing control was taught to hold the staff of obedience. When I called him back, he no longer went as one who wanted to prove his strength, but as one who knew he needed me in every step. Do you see? I do not only call a person to do great things. First, I lead that person out of the illusion that they must do everything by themselves. What I did with Moses, I am also doing within you in your own way. I do not want you to enter the new season with the same old rhythm of breath, the same old fear, and the same old habit of placing yourself as the pillar holding up the whole house. You are not the only pillar of every relationship. You are not the watchman responsible for keeping every circumstance from falling apart. You are not the answer to every need, nor the hand that must appear everywhere in order to be called faithful. True faithfulness is not burning yourself up until you are emptied. True faithfulness is standing in the place where I set you, doing the portion I assign, loving with the source I provide, and knowing how to stop when I tell you to rest. I do not rejoice when you are exhausted in the name of responsibility. I rejoice when you live in obedience that carries peace. From now on, practice listening to a new question before you take on more, before you explain, before you rush into fixing, before you put on the old role again. Is this coming from love, or is it coming from fear? If you say yes only because you fear being forgotten, stop beside me. If you carry something only because you fear being called selfish, let me teach you holy boundaries. If you explain only because you cannot bear being misunderstood, let me protect the truth at the right time. If you hurry to calm everyone else only because the unrest within you cannot bear the empty space, let me calm you first. I do not call you to live carelessly, nor do I call you to become cold. I call you to love without being enslaved to fear, to serve without losing the life within you, to be present without erasing yourself. There will be people who do not understand this change in you. They are used to a version of you who is always available, always takes the difficult part, always apologizes first, always arranges everything, always accepts loss so everything can appear peaceful. When you begin to live more slowly, more clearly, more truthfully, they may be surprised, even displeased. But my beloved, Another person's discomfort is not always proof that you are wrong. Sometimes it is only the cry of an old order when it is no longer being fed as before. Be gentle, but do not return to change simply because someone is not used to seeing you free. Be humble, but do not use humility as an excuse to deny what I am healing in you. Be tender, but do not become so soft that every hand can pull you away from where I have placed you to stand. Then you will realize that a new strength is growing in the silence. It is not like the old strength, which always had to strain, always had to control, always had to prepare for the worst. This new strength is calmer. It does not need to display itself. It does not need applause. It does not need to prove itself through busyness. It is like tree roots, quietly gripping deep into the soil, like a lamp burning steadily in a hidden room, like clear water that does not need to rush, yet still nourishes the fields. You will find that you can say no without hating anyone, rest without feeling guilty, allow others to be disappointed without losing your peace, love without imprisoning yourself in the role of the one who carries everything for everyone. That is the sign that you are standing on the feet of one upheld by me, no longer standing by the supporting wall of fear. My beloved child, when the door of the new season gently opens before you, do not enter it with the posture of one still afraid of the old wind. I know you have passed through storms that made your hands tremble, your heart grow weary, and your eyes lift many times without seeing a peaceful sky. But hear me speak deeply into the place where you once felt lost. The storm is not your name, nor is it the sentence over your life. The storm only passed through to reveal what was standing firm, what needed to be repaired, and what had taken root in me in ways even you had not yet recognized. It may shake the doors, bend the branches, wet the road, and disturb the plans you once arranged carefully, but it has no authority to rewrite the identity I placed within you. I have never used fear as ink to write your story. From the beginning, I have written with mercy, with light, with guided steps, with trust refined in trial and made more enduring than gold. Therefore, when you look ahead, do not expect the new page to be completely free of every trace of the old days before it can be called a blessing. Some of the most beautiful pages are not the untouched white pages, but the pages I continue writing after the passages you thought had ended. I do not erase you from your own history. I redeem that history. I do not cover the past with a vague mist so you can pretend you were never hurt. I place within it a new meaning, a new life, a new testimony. The coming chapters are not chapters of ruin following ruin, but chapters of one who has learned to stand, not by dry hardness, not by closing the heart, not by the habit of self-defense, but by the deep assurance that I am still here. I still hold you. I still go before you. I am still making what seemed scattered take shape within my plan. There will be people who look at you and see only the outside of the story. They see you walking after the storm, but they do not know how many nights you had to learn to breathe again in peace. They see today's smile, but they do not know how many questions you once brought before me in silence. They hear you speak gently, but they do not know that this gentleness was forged in hours when you could have become bitter and still chose not to let your heart dry up. They see the treetop moving in the wind, but they do not see the roots gripping deep into good soil. They see the surface of the water ripple, but they do not see the rock beneath it that has not moved. You do not need to force them to understand everything before you are allowed to be at peace. Your peace is not a gift the world gives you when it acknowledges that you have endured enough. That peace comes from me, and what comes from me does not need the crowd's confirmation in order to have value. When you learn this, your steps will become different. You will no longer rush after every glance, every compliment, every agreement. as if your life is safe only when others nod their approval. You will no longer live in the posture of always having to explain, always having to prove, always having to retell how deeply you were hurt in order to be loved. There are things I see, and that is enough. There are tears no one knows about, yet I have remembered them. There are battles you won in silence, without applause, without witnesses, but before me, they shine like a lamp on a hill. Lift your eyes. Do not only look around. When your eyes are set on me, your heart is no longer dragged by other people's misunderstanding. When your eyes are set on me, you will walk slowly, yet steadily, humbly, yet without lowering yourself, silently, yet without weakness, radiantly, yet without needing to display yourself. Then, in the deepest hidden place, you will recognize a wonder. The time after the storm is not only a time to repair what was damaged, but also a time of ripening. You thought you were only recovering, but I am doing more than that. I am calling the seeds that have long been beneath the soil. There are dreams you buried because you thought it was too late. There are abilities you let gather dust because others once mocked them. There are longings you hid behind the words, "It is all right," because you feared hoping and being disappointed again. There are beautiful parts of you that have been silent for so long that you thought they were no longer alive. But what I have sown does not die simply because winter lasts a long time. What belongs to you in my intention does not disappear just because you once became weary. When I call, the seed hears. When I send warmth, hard ground softens. When I open the season, what has lain still begins to stir. Remember the story of Joseph, who passed through seasons no one could call easy. He was thrown into a pit by the very people who should have protected him. Sold far from home, misunderstood in a foreign place, and forgotten after doing what was right. If one looked at each piece separately, one might think the story was nothing but loss. But I did not write Joseph's life according to the perspective of the pit, the chains, or the prison. I wrote it with a hand that already knew the day grain would be preserved for an entire people. The years that seemed buried were actually the place where I taught him stewardship, discernment, patience, and how not to let bitterness rule his heart. When the season came, what once looked like injustice became the path that brought him to the right position to save many. Do you see? I do not always lift you up by a smooth road. Sometimes I lead you through the valley to deepen your roots, through waiting to strengthen your faith, through being forgotten so you may know that I have never forgotten you. So do not despise the years you thought were only delays. There are days when you think nothing is happening, but beneath the soil of silence, I am causing your roots to spread. There are seasons when you think you are losing time, but I am storing wisdom within you that will one day nourish others. There are closed doors not meant to make you smaller, but to keep you from entering places that no longer fit my calling over you. There are people who leave not because you have lost value, but because I am clearing space for what is healthier, purer, and more rightly timed. Do not call every loss a failure. In my hands. Some losses are pruning. Some empty spaces are preparation. Some delays are protective fences. Some long nights are cradles for dawn. The new season does not require you to forget the old season, but it invites you not to let the old season command today's steps. You can remember without being bound. You can tell the story without living again inside the pain. You can carry the lesson without carrying the chain. I do not want you to enter the new season as one still clutching ashes, afraid that if you let them go, the past will become meaningless. No, my beloved, when you place the ashes in my hands, I know how to make from them a beauty no one expected. When you give me your fear, I do not mock you for being weak. I teach you courage in the way beloved children learn it. When you give me the dreams that were once buried, I do not laugh because they are late. I breathe into them, my timing. What I call to rise will not need to fight its way into life. It will grow in peace, in order, in light, under gentle and certain guidance. Therefore, prepare your heart for the season of ripening, not by rushing to pluck fruit while it is still green, but by trusting that the one who sows is also the one who knows the day of harvest. Let me renew your vision, so that you no longer measure yourself by what has been lost. Let me soften your hands, so that you have courage to receive again the gifts you once feared holding. Let me quiet your breathing, so that you do not run into the future with the panic of the past. I do not call you to rise in order to prove to others that you have overcome. I call you to rise so that you may live. Live in truth. Live in light. Live in the identity I preserved, even when you thought the storm had scattered you. One day, you will look back and understand that the storm was only a stretch of road, not the destination. The wind was only a passing sound, not the final voice. The night was only a season permitted to exist for a time, not the throne ruling your life. What remains after everything is not fear, but the mark of my hand on every page. You will see that you no longer need to tell your story with the voice of one defeated. You will tell it with the voice of one who has been lifted, preserved, called out of the ashes and into a season of sweet fruit. And when the seeds that once slept begin to grow, you will know it was not because you forced yourself to be strong, but because I called at the right time. I called what belongs to you. I called your season. I called the part that had been buried but had never died. And when I call, life answers.